Hi, I'm Søren. I'm the founder of Glue, and I'm sitting here with Josh, and we're going to have a conversation about process hierarchy. So Josh, shoot.
Process hierarchy, it sounds pretty vague and abstract. Can you help me try and understand that?
Well, it is. It's kind of a visual presentation of all the continuous work that you do in your company. That is the work that is documented, of course. So in a process hierarchy, you would have all your processes that you've documented, and you would know who owns each process, and you would be able to see them grouped in a way that is natural to you. Typically in the hierarchy, you have the most important processes at the top, the ones that are creating value for your company, and lower down you have the less important processes. So that's essentially a process hierarchy. It's important because it provides your organization with a common language of how the business operates. So it's a way of building a bridge between, you can say, the people in the company and the subcontractors, the suppliers building your systems, the customers, and knowing how everything is interrelated. That's very crucial. It can be a quite time-consuming effort, but it really provides you with a good basis for doing a lot of other work. To give you some examples of the other types of work you can do with it is, in case you want to have a certification, an ISO certification, for instance, then that is based on understanding of your process hierarchy. So that's one way, one area. Another is, for instance, in Europe we have this new law on personal data coming out. And in order to understand how you store data on your employees and your customers, you need a process hierarchy. So there are so many things where a process hierarchy can be seen as the enabler for doing something else. So it's good to have in there from start and then develop over time.
Right, now, thanks. I understand what they are now. They sound really, really important. I guess that means that pretty much every company has one, right?
Actually, they don't. I think it's quite few companies that have process hierarchies. The ones that are ISO certified and work with quality management, they may have it for formal reasons, but it's very few companies that I know where they actively work with it. And that's really a bit of a paradox, because it's a bit like if I walk into a company and I ask them, how do you work here? Nobody would be able to give me, well, everybody would give me their own story. So if there are 20 people in the company, I would get 20 different versions of how they work. There would be no common version, and that's really strange, because if they have no common language, no way of reflecting what they do continuously as a business, how can they ensure that it is happening the same way, every time? How can they get new people up to speed? How can they build systems, IT systems, if they don't know how they work? So the process hierarchy is that structure that really provides the clarity for so many other things, and it's really strange for me and others to see that so few companies are really using it.
Why do you think that is? Why aren't they using it? What's the resistance there?
I think the issue is that they go stale. You bring in some consultants in a workshop with your senior management, you create a process hierarchy, and it may be a nice workshop, but then it doesn't get out to meet the employees. It is not maintained on an ongoing basis. So the hierarchy, of course, is only a collection of your processes, but your individual processes inside the hierarchy have to be the ownership of the people that do the work in your company. And only by allowing this right balance between the hierarchy, which sort of is the top management's view of the company, and the actual content of each process, which is the ownership of the people in the business. Only when you get this sort of top-bottom dynamic will you keep it alive on an ongoing basis.
Sort of keeping it fresh.
Yeah, it's about really making sure that you delegate the processes and the documentation of the processes in your hierarchy. Otherwise, it just becomes another abstraction of your business that no one really cares about.
Right, well, that sounds really important. You've definitely sold me. So, say, for example, I'm a medium-sized company, and typically I don't have a huge amount of resources, don't have budget for consultants. How would I get started with something like that? Because it sounds like a big project.
Yeah, you first of all, you need to get buy-in from your senior management. That's very critical. If they don't really buy into this idea, then you shouldn't start the project at all. So let's assume they buy in, then you should get everybody off-site in a half-day workshop, and you should use a whiteboard, or even better, directly in Glue. You should list all the processes in the different that you can think of in your company that really matters to what you're delivering as a company. So, for instance, a good starting point is that you map all the main activities that you see in your value chain from the point where you're contacting the customer until he has a final delivery and service, and you map up all these main activities, and then you assign owners to them. That's quite important. First, you need to inside your management team to agree on who is the owner of which part. Typically, you have that already because you have the logistics director, you have the marketing director, you have the production director, and so on. But you need to be able to, at a lower level, also to understand who should be the natural owner of each process. And once this overview and these ownerships are established, then you should delegate the actual mapping of the processes to your employees and wait for their input to come back to you, because there will be a lot of iteration between top and bottom of the company. But you as a management team need to own the process hierarchy, but your employees need to own the processes. I think that's very important to stress, because otherwise, if your employees own everything, then it may turn into some sort of chaos because there will be no overall direction. On the other hand, if your management team controls everything, it's not going to be dynamic, it's not going to be kept alive, it's going to die inside the room with the management team.
Cool, yeah, that's a pretty good explanation about how to get started. Though I must say I find it a little bit hard to sort of visualize one in my mind. I feel like it would be helpful to actually see a few examples.
Yeah, this topic can be a little bit abstract. And this is also why we created an article where we go in depth with how you can start with creating a process hierarchy. So thanks for watching this first video. We have a lot more coming, so stay tuned.